The life of each person is inherently short. Every minute that passes is a minute that cannot be reclaimed. Every day that goes by is a day that will never return. If we constantly worry about things that may not happen, or about people who don't truly care for us, we will unwittingly forget the most important thing: to live fully in the present moment with ourselves. Some people spend their entire lives worrying, thinking, and fearing. Worrying about their children from birth until their hair turns gray. Fearing failure, endlessly pondering what others think of them. Every morning, they wake up, and before seeing the sun, their hearts are already clouded with gloom. Every evening, they lie down, their bodies tired, but their minds refuse to rest. The mind flits about like a monkey swinging through trees, never pausing for a second. We often think that to live a worthy life, we must accomplish many things. But sometimes, the most worthy thing is knowing when to rest. Rest is not idleness, but a way to renew oneself. Releasing thoughts is not avoidance, but an understanding that overthinking helps nothing, except to tire the heart further. No one lives our life for us, nor does anyone worry for us. Therefore, if you can choose a way of life, please choose to live lightly. Do what you can, and if you can't, don't torment yourself. Love those you can, and if that love isn't returned, don't resent it. When things come, act. When they go, let go. Everything happens in its own due temperature and moment. We don't need to know the future to be at peace. We only need to cherish every moment in the present. For wonder doesn't lie in grand things, but in the small moments we truly live fully. The less one thinks, the lighter the heart becomes. The more one can let go, the more peaceful the mind. Life doesn't need to be grand. It just needs each day to pass with our hearts no longer burdened by nameless thoughts. Some ask why they feel more tired the longer they live, and why the more they think, the more their lives seem full of suffering. In truth, it's not because life is too heavy, but because our hearts are carrying too many unnecessary things. The Buddha's teachings from ancient times still echo today, reminding humanity that wealth, fame, or power will vanish like morning dew. The only things that remain are a peaceful mind and a compassionate heart. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from greed, hatred, and delusion. If these can be let go of, the mind will naturally become light, and life will be serene amidst the competitive world. If one knows how to slow down, be content, and be loving, that is already the path back to true happiness. Once, Mrs. Hoa was a famous dentist in Saigon. She worked tirelessly her whole life, saving every penny to buy land and houses. Now, her assets include an entire row of rental properties and several townhouses for rent in the city center. People say she doesn't need to do anything. Money flows into her pockets every morning. But few knew that within her closed-off house, she lived a silent and austere life. Her husband died early, and her only daughter married and settled in a foreign land. Her life revolved around markets and bland meals of boiled vegetables and braised fish. No travel, no gatherings. She rarely visited her hometown. She was even frugal with words and trust towards others, fearing someone would take advantage of her vulnerability and seize the money she had painstakingly accumulated her whole life. Then, one day, a stroke struck her down. Her body stiffened, her eyes saw, but she couldn't speak. Her daughter flew back, hired a caregiver for a few days, then rushed back to her life across the ocean. On her sickbed, she lay helpless, wanting to tell her daughter how much money she had and where it was hidden. But her lips only trembled, unable to form words. All those years of living an arduous life to accumulate money, and in the end, she couldn't even touch it, nor could she entrust it to anyone. The money was piled up somewhere in her cold house, but she was empty and alone. Perhaps she would carry that torment with her to the afterlife, where money holds no meaning. People say even a small cup, if held long enough, can make your arm ache. Similarly, if we constantly cling to idle thoughts in our minds without letting go, eventually they will become ropes that bind us. In their own suffering, some people worry about old age from a young age, worry about children before starting a family, fear failure before venturing into life, fear being misunderstood before speaking a word. Their minds are like winds constantly changing direction, thinking about one thing, then immediately worrying about another. Before they can live in the present, their hearts are dragged to things yet to come. A human life is perhaps not as long as we imagine. If we spend our entire lives thinking and fearing, how much time is left to truly live? There are days so sad one cannot speak, only feeling an emptiness in the heart. Looking around, everyone seems rushed. Everyone has a reason to be tired. Everyone tries to appear fine, even if they might be falling apart inside. Yet, strangely, some people amidst all the turmoil maintain a gentle gaze, a soft smile. It's not because their lives have less suffering than others, but because they have learned not to torment themselves further. They have let go of things not worth keeping to gain what is truly precious. Mr. Tu knew only work his entire life. From a young age, people saw him toiling away, from tending his rice field to managing rental houses, then struggling with countless other things. People said he was excessively diligent, never knowing how to rest. He would laugh and say, "Resting is no different from dying. Only by working do I feel alive." Throughout his youth and into old age, Mr. Tu worked relentlessly. His wife advised him to rest. His children urged him to travel and see the world, but he brushed them all aside. He said he worked his whole life to ensure his children wouldn't suffer, but heaven doesn't grant anyone complete happiness. His only son, his greatest hope, unexpectedly contracted cancer and passed away before him. On the day of his son's funeral, Mr. Tu sat distraught, holding a photo. Behind him, towering houses and vast lands. The wealth he had accumulated his entire life remained untouched. Only the person to whom he intended to entrust it was gone. He began to see that mountain of money as meaningless. In his old age, he still lived in a large, empty house. Friends advised him to travel, eat well, and dress nicely. He just shook his head. At this point, he no longer had a need to spend, nor anyone to give to. Money piled up, but his health deteriorated, and youth never returned. People say labor is glorious and money is precious. But for Mr. Two, in the end, the most precious things were those he had let slip through his fingers. Youth to live slowly, health to enjoy, and time with loved ones. He still kept his eyes open, seeing the money piled high, but wondering what he could take with him to the other side. A life of hardship, ultimately leaving only a tragedy. The tragedy of one who had everything except happiness. Sadness is not giving up, but refusing to stop embracing the things that disturb one's mind. Some things cannot be changed, so do not force them. Some people don't want to stay, so don't try to hold on to them. Some things, if you know clearly they cannot be held, then let them go gently. Each act of letting go is an act of returning a little lightness to life and a little spaciousness to the mind. Each time you don't react to gossip or criticism, your heart feels more at ease. Each time you don't torment yourself over past events, you are being kind to yourself. Life doesn't offer easy choices, but we can always choose to face them gently. Someone once faced such a huge upheaval they thought they couldn't overcome it. Losing their job, losing loved ones, being misunderstood, being betrayed. All at once, like a storm sweeping away every pillar of support. At that moment, they only wanted to disappear. But they remained, not because the pain was gone, but because amidst the suffering, they suddenly realized the most important thing. Even if everything else is lost, if one can maintain clarity and gratitude, there is still a path forward. From then on, they no longer lived to please others. They lived to be grateful for life, to be kind to themselves, to lighten each burden that once made them want to collapse. Those who worry often do so not because life is so terrifying, but because their minds are not stable enough. When the mind is restless, even under warm sunshine, the heart feels cold. When the mind is truly at peace, even in a raging storm, one finds a tranquil refuge. No one can take away your inner peace unless you give it away yourself. And that peace doesn't come from possessing many things, but from daring to let go. Sometimes we think we are living, but in reality, we are just existing unconsciously amidst daily anxieties. Waking up in a hurry for food, clothing, and money, eating hastily at noon, the mind still busy with what needs to be done that afternoon. In the evening, when the body is tired, we turn on our phones to fill the precarious emptiness in our minds. We call that living. But is a life lived only by inertia truly living? Or are we simply letting life sweep us away, like a current, no longer piloting our own boat? People often say that to find peace, one must avoid storms. But who can avoid the winds and rains of life? One can only learn to keep the mind like the surface of an autumn lake. Even if there are strong winds and heavy rain outside, inside it remains still reflecting the clouds and sky. And to maintain that lake, the first thing to learn is not how to better withstand the storms, but how to let go of unnecessary things that are stirring oneself up. Letting go is not just an action, but a cultivation, a journey of looking back at oneself, identifying what causes unease, then gently putting them down. Without hurry, without forcing, without rushing, letting go is like a tired arm naturally releasing an object that causes it pain, like the last drop of water leaving a yellow leaf. no regret, no pain. It's just time to go. Someone once harbored a deep anger. Angry at a loved one who had hurt them in the past, so angry that every time they remembered it, their heart would ache and tears would fall without them even noticing. But then, on a calm evening, when there was no one left to vent their anger on, that person sat down and asked themselves, how many years have I been angry like this? Has it changed anything? That person is still living their life, while I carry this burden every day. When they understood, tears fell again, but they were tears of letting go. Letting go was not to forgive the other person, but to stop hurting oneself. And from that moment, the heart felt lighter, and life was different. We often think we need something more to be happy. More money, more loved ones, more recognition, more success. But in reality, sometimes we don't need more. We just need to let go of a few things. Less expectation, less comparison, less blame, less clinging. Like a room that doesn't need extravagant painting or renovation, it just needs to be tidied up and cleared of clutter to become bright. The mind is the same. When unnecessary thoughts are lightened, it naturally feels much more at peace. A teacup cannot be filled with more water if it is already full. A soul cannot welcome light if it is still full of burdens. It refuses to release. Letting go is the condition for receiving. Letting go is opening a new door for one's life to turn a new page. Someone once lived many years in grief over the loss of a loved one. From the day that person left, the house became cold, the heart became closed off. The living person held an old photograph every day, spoke words they never had time to say, and cried unseen tears. Every anniversary of the death, their heart ached as if it were fresh. One day, they went to a temple, not to pray for anything, but just to sit silently under a tree, watching the wind gently sway the branches. Then a monk passed by, saw them, and simply said, "Your loved one is at peace. Why are you still suffering?" The words resonated like a bell in their heart. The dead are gone, but the living have never truly lived. From then on, that person began to practice meditation, practice breathing, practice letting go little by little, not to forget the lost loved one, but for that person to be at peace, and for themselves to be at peace, too. And then, gradually, the house brightened. Not because there were more people, but because the person in the house had stopped crying. Peace sometimes doesn't require many conditions. It just requires knowing enough, knowing how to live, knowing that no one lives with anyone forever. But if you have a moment together, love each other fully. And when it's time to part, let that love be gentle, like a falling petal, without regret, without clinging, without holding back. Thus, one who learns to let go will find their heart expand, not because it gained anything, but because it released what was accumulated. One who learns to live lightly will find life lightens accordingly. Like a boat no longer heavily laden will easily drift down a great river. Like a cloud no longer carrying a storm will easily dissolve into the blue sky. When the mind is no longer a tightly held in for everything, light will naturally enter. When the heart is no longer closed, peace will come, uninvited yet present. Sometimes we think we need to do something grand so life isn't wasted, so others don't look down on us, so we don't feel regret when we look back. So we frantically race with everything. with time, with pressure, with standards set by others. The more we run, the more tired we become. The harder we try, the more exhausted. Some people live for decades surrounded by achievements, praise, and admiring glances. But when night falls, the lights go out, the applause fades, and they are left alone with themselves. Only then do they realize how empty their hearts are. So empty that they have everything, yet don't have themselves. So empty that sometimes they want to cry, but don't know why the tears fall. It turns out what exhausts us is not the lack of achievement, but forgetting to ask ourselves what we truly need to feel content. A lay practitioner once came to a Zen master and asked, "I have done every good deed. I have lived kindly with everyone. I work diligently, care for my family, help others. But why does my heart still feel heavy?" The Zen master looked at him and pointed to a basket filled with dry firewood. He asked, "If I told you to carry more firewood, could you carry it?" The lay practitioner shook his head. The Zen master smiled and said, "Then why don't you try putting some down?" Putting down is not selfishness, but self-compassion. Not everyone who does a lot will gain a lot. It depends on the intention of the mind when doing it. If you act with expectation, if you live with resentment, even if your hands perform good deeds, your mind still creates unwholesome karma. Let go of negative thoughts. Let go of unnecessary expectations. Let go of the idea that you must always be a good person in the eyes of others. Just live truly kindly with yourself first, and goodness will naturally spread outwards. Some things in life don't need fixing, just revisiting. Some sorrows don't need analyzing, just listening to. Some hurts don't need explaining, just embracing with understanding. We often suffer because we always want everything to go our way, even though life isn't born to please anyone. Some people live for decades, yet only agonize over a small matter, a careless word, a cold glance. But there are also those who have experienced great losses, been through war and poverty, yet still maintain a radiant smile like the morning sun. Why? Because they don't let the past bind the present. Because they know how to put down burdens when they are too tired. The ancients had a wonderful saying, "One thought of letting go, and heaven and earth become vast." Just one thought of relinquishing is enough to open up an entire sky in the mind. When we no longer insist on winning every argument, we gain a friend. When we no longer wish to surpass others, we feel sufficient. When we no longer stubbornly cling to our own reasons, our hearts expand, encompassing others and ourselves. In moments of vulnerability, a woman once confided that every time she argued with her husband, she felt defeated, unheard, misunderstood. She cried a lot, felt angry and resentful. But after a near breakup, she decided not to speak anymore, not to punish, but to listen. Listen to herself. Listen to him. Listen to the hurts they had caused each other. And from then on, their endless arguments ceased, replaced by long silences together, understanding each other more without needing many words. It turns out, letting go of a complaint can save a home. Letting go of a little self-pride can secure a peaceful life. The more upheavals one goes through, the more one wants to live simply, not wanting to talk much, not wanting to compete, not wanting to explain, not wanting to prove anything, just wanting to live peacefully, waking up each morning, hearing birds sing, seeing loved ones healthy. That alone is enough for gratitude. No need for more, no need for grandeur. The fewer needs, the lighter the heart. The fewer desires, the more blessings accumulate. The less attachment, the easier it is to see what is truly precious in this short life. Namo Buddhaya. Homage to the root teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Buddhism has a history spanning many thousands of years worldwide and has developed in Vietnam for nearly 20 centuries. Throughout history, numerous documents and research works have been published to explain and deeply understand Buddhism. Buddhism was founded by humans to serve humans. Buddhism takes humans as its root. Buddhism has satisfied the noble and profound aspirations of humanity, and it can also withstand the stress and pollution of daily life. It helps people in their interactions with their fellow beings. Furthermore, it offers a purpose in life. Buddhism does not sow fear in people's hearts. Good brings good, and bad brings bad. Every action has its consequences. Besides this, there are still many aspects of Buddhism that we, as Buddhists, have not yet clarified. The following lecture will point out these aspects. 20. Common misunderstandings about Buddhism. 1. Misunderstanding. The Buddha is not real. Correct understanding. The Buddha was a flesh and blood human being. Many people imagine the Buddha to be some sort of mythical deity who is not real, but in reality, the Buddha was a flesh and blood human. This is the most common misunderstanding about Buddhism. He was born around 624 BC. His real name was Siddhartha, from the Shakya clan, and he was the crown prince of the Shakya kingdom, ruled by his father. The territory of the Shakya nation is currently in the border region of Nepal and India. He left his family to seek a path to escape worldly suffering. Afterward, he simply guided others on that path. The worship of the Buddha was devised by later generations. People even worship the Buddha so much that they forget the main task is to practice the path to happiness that the Buddha taught. Shakyamuni Buddha lived to be 80 years old. His birthplace, place of death, and residence have all been identified by scientists with historical evidence. Buddha is a spiritual attainment, or one could say, a title for those who are absolutely enlightened. Therefore, there are many who are called Buddha. Some existed historically, like Shakyamuni Buddha. Some are known only in scriptures, like Amitabha Buddha and Maitreya Buddha, and no one has met them in real life. 2. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is a religion. Correct understanding. Buddhism is not a religion. Although Buddhism has religious activities, it is not a religion. This is because the Buddhist worldview does not have a supreme creator God who creates all beings and has the power to reward good or punish evil. 3. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is a belief system for people to pray for vulgar, everyday things. Correct understanding. Buddhism is not a mere belief system. Buddhism has activities that involve belief. However, Buddhism is not a belief system for people to come and pray for vulgar, mundane wishes. 4. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is a philosophy. Correct understanding. Buddhism is not a branch of philosophy. Buddhism has a system of thought derived from the Vinaya, sutras, and Abhidharma, which is called as it truly is, nu thuk, nu ti tuit, and is not a branch of philosophy that analyzes and speculates like Western philosophy. 5. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is a philosophical discourse. Correct understanding. Buddhism is the path of truth, as it is, and has no philosophy or discourse. Buddhism possesses wisdom, tuejak, to clearly see reality, rather than using rational analysis or speculation. Philosophy and discourse arise from not yet clearly seeing reality. Buddhism is the path of truth, as it is. The Buddha's teachings always proceed from concrete reality to guide people in their practice. It has no philosophy or discourse. Even Zen meditation, if it involves discourse, Thien Luan, has already lost its essence. 6. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is only about social charity. Correct understanding. Buddhism does not consider social charity to be everything. Buddhism does engage in social charity activities. However, early Buddhism, Fat Jiao Nguyen did not consider social charity to be everything, so as to waste one's life as a monk or nun. Do Tron, Ao Vung. Buddhism also encompasses nobler activities such as education, culture, art, and the practice of meditation, Thien Din, and wisdom, Thien Tue. Social charity can be performed by anyone. In fact, some people do it better than Buddhists. For example, the American billionaire businessman Bill Gates, who is Catholic. However, the education, culture, and art of Buddhism form an aesthetic foundation, embodying humanistic and humane values that no other religion, ideology, or doctrine in the world can compare with. And this is the most beautiful contribution of Buddhism to the world. Furthermore, without the practice of meditation and wisdom, all forms of Buddhist activity would not truly be Buddhist. 7. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is spiritual. Correct understanding. Buddhism does not involve superstitious or mystical spirituality. Nowadays, there are rampant festivals and countless shrines with forms of superstitious, decadent spirituality, where spiritual values are proclaimed everywhere. Buddhism does not have such types of spirituality. This term, spiritual, Tamlin, was imported from somewhere in China. Moreover, we have not found any Pali or Sanskrit Buddhist source that contains a word equivalent to this lin, spirit, soul. A. Misunderstanding. Buddha is a divine concept. Correct understanding. Buddha is the sound of the word Buddha, meaning the awakened one. So we should temporarily forget the divine-colored concept of Buddha that has long been rooted in our consciousness and return to the original meaning, the awakened one. Thus, there are those who awaken by hearing the Dharma from a perfectly self-enlightened one, called disciple-enlightened ones, Tanvanjak. There are those who awaken by their own practice during a time when there is no perfectly self-enlightened one, called solitary Buddhas, Dokjak. There are those who awaken by fully perfecting the 30 perfections, Ba Lamat, complete with wisdom and conduct, and are called perfectly self-enlightened ones, Chindangjak. There are no enlightened Buddhas other than these 3 types of enlightenment. 9. Misunderstanding. Buddhism has destiny. Correct understanding. Buddhism speaks of karma, Nangyep, and the law of cause and effect, Nhan Kwa Nyip Bao, but it never speaks of destiny. According to Buddhism, Sowing bad deeds reaps suffering, and sowing good deeds reaps happiness and peace. It's not that every little thing is predetermined by heaven, as in the destiny theory of Confucianism or the forecast destiny of Brahmanism. 10. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is mysterious and secret. Correct understanding. There is nothing mysterious or secret in the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha always proclaimed that the Tathagata preaches with an open hand, meaning he has no secret teachings to hide. 11. Misunderstanding. The goal of Buddhism is to be reborn in the Pure Land. Correct understanding. Buddhism speaks of joy, hailak, in various levels of meditation, thayan, and happiness in freeing oneself from anger and worldly afflictions. But it does not speak of an exaggerated, pure land, kyuk-lak. The goal of Buddhism is not a heaven or a pure land, but to help us escape present suffering and worries to find true happiness. Of course, this is a great endeavor that takes an immeasurably long time and cannot be achieved in a single lifetime of a few decades. Even the Buddha had to undergo many successive lifetimes of practice, let alone ordinary people. Therefore, in Buddhism, some masters advocate guiding practitioners step by step. Initially, a person can practice to be reborn in a happier place in the next life, such as the Pure Land. After that, in that realm, they will continue to progress to be completely free from suffering. However, there are also some who do not need to take that path, but focus on practicing directly in their human life and still achieve enlightenment. History records many of the Buddha's disciples who were real people, and many monastics after the Buddha's time achieved enlightenment while living in the human realm. Therefore, it can be said that rebirth in the Pure Land is a noble goal in Buddhism, but it is not the ultimate result that the Buddha wanted people to achieve. 12. Misunderstanding. The Buddha grants wealth and fortune. Correct understanding. Buddhism teaches that to reap good results, one must sow good seeds. No gods or Buddhas grant wealth and fortune. Many people make offerings to the Buddha or prepare elaborate feasts with the wish that the Buddha will bring good luck, money, houses, or children. In reality, this is a misconception about Buddhism. The Buddha was merely a guide who went before us and transmitted his experience for us to practice and live free from suffering. He is not a deity with the power to grant wealth and fortune. To achieve happiness, the best way is to study the Buddha's path and follow it, not to worship and ask for this or that. Remember that the Buddha taught, "If you want sweet fruits, sow fragrant seeds." This means that our blessings are created by ourselves. It is not the Buddha who bestows blessings, but rather the karma we sow in life. Misfortune or blessings will arise from that. 13. Misunderstanding. Buddhism includes fortune-telling, divination, astrology, warding off bad luck, and choosing auspicious dates, times. Correct understanding. These practices are not part of Buddhism. These forms are not Buddhist. In the Pali Canon, there is a passage. The moment we practice purity of body, speech, and mind, that moment is called a good destiny, a good hour, a good time, a good watch. That day is called having prosperous body karma, prosperous speech karma, prosperous mind karma. and the aspiration accordingly is called a prosperous aspiration. Having created prosperous body karma, speech karma, and mind karma in this way, one will achieve prosperous benefits. 14. Misunderstanding. Niyam Phat, reciting Buddha's name, is just verbally chanting the Buddha's name. Correct understanding. Niyam Phat focuses on the inner mind, not merely the outward form of chanting. Niyam Phat is a popular method of practice, but even memorizing it without understanding its meaning is ineffective. Furthermore, continuously chanting Namo Amitabha Buddha is also considered a merit. This makes young people feel skeptical and uninterested in Buddhism. In fact, the word niyam, recite mindfulness, here means to remember, similar to tongnim, commemorate, or huainim, reminisce. Nemphut, or constantly remembering the Buddha, is an effective method to help our minds be peaceful and clear. Additionally, each recitation brings us concentration, pushing away distracting thoughts. Therefore, Niyam Phat actually focuses on the inner mind, not on the outward form as many still think. 15. Misunderstanding. All Buddhist monastics must be vegetarian. Correct understanding. Buddhism only prohibits practitioners from killing living beings. Vegetarianism depends on circumstances. This is one of the most common misunderstandings about Buddhism. Vegetarianism is only an encouraged practice, not a prohibited rule in Buddhism. When he was alive, the Buddha also ate meat, not strictly vegetarian. In Buddhism, only monastics are prohibited from killing living beings. Vegetarianism, if conditions permit, should be observed. In ancient times, people were not accustomed to vegetarianism, so sometimes meat and fish were offered to monks. The monks eating these were not considered to have violated the precepts. Nowadays, economic conditions are better, and lay Buddhists can prepare vegetarian food for temples, so monks can continuously be vegetarian. Furthermore, in special circumstances, such as illness, monks also need to eat meat to maintain their health and cannot be forced to be vegetarian. The idea that monks eating meat and fish constitutes a serious transgression is a consequence of Chinese films about monastic life, which mislead many. This is one of many anxieties for those beginning to learn about Buddhism. They cannot resist their desire to eat meat and find vegetarianism in monastic life to be truly dreadful. However, Buddhism does not compel people to be vegetarian. It is good if one can, but if not, one should limit killing. When he had no means to be vegetarian, the Buddha went on alms rounds and ate whatever was offered. Sometimes he still ate meat because people offered meat, and that was not a sin. Eating vegetarian food but not practicing good deeds, or eating vegetarian food but still harboring anger, treating superiors with disrespect, or treating inferiors with condescension and contempt, is not as good as eating meat, but being kind, gentle, and living with a benevolent heart. 16. Misunderstanding. The most important teachings are the sutras. Correct understanding. The most important Buddhist teaching is for the practitioner to attain genuine enlightenment. Many people, when speaking of Buddhism, immediately boast about how many sutras they have memorized or which chapters they have studied. But that is not the essential point that the Buddha taught. The most important teachings in Buddhism are precisely the most fundamental teachings that the Buddha always mentioned in all circumstances: the law of cause and effect, Nhan-kwa, and the Four Noble Truths. Chanting sutras and reciting the Buddha's name are not for praying or memorizing, thinking that simply reciting them will gain the Buddha's approval. The greatest purpose of this is for disciples to remember the Buddha's teachings, illuminate themselves, realize the Dharma, and act accordingly, chanting and internalizing and remembering, and then acting upon it. That is genuine Nimphut. 17. Misunderstanding. Buddhism offers salvation, Su-do, Su-tuat. Correct understanding. There is no salvation or transcendence in the sense of transferring a spirit to a higher realm, but only blessings and supportive power. No sutra, no power of any monk or master can chant sutras to super-deliver or super-transcend spirits, wandering souls, or vital essences. When the Buddha was alive, if monastics visited the deceased, they would only recite verses on impermanence, suffering, and non-self to awaken the living. And currently, Buddhist countries that maintain this practice may have two cases. If someone has just clinically died, their consciousness, then thuk, may still be present. In this case, chanting sutras, playing sutra recordings, using bells, wooden fish, and incense can help guide the consciousness towards wholesome thoughts, allowing the consciousness to create good near-death karma for itself. If the consciousness has already left the body, then they have already been reborn in another realm. Immediately, then, the family performs good deeds and invites monks to chant sutras and dedicate the merit to the deceased. In both cases, there is no meaning of super-delivery or super-transcendence, but only the meaning of blessing, remembrance, and supportive power. Practicing relying on external power is similar, but ultimately, one must rely on oneself, lighting one's own lamp and walking one's own path. One is one's own island. Devas, celestial beings, only have the ability to rejoice in merit and convey that information to the deceased. They do not have the power to bestow blessings on anyone. 18. Misunderstanding. Buddhism believes in souls, spirits, and vital energies, hon via fuck. Correct understanding. Buddhism does not have concepts of via, hon, or fuck. Via, hon, and fuck are popular human concepts. For example, 3 souls and 7 spirits, ba, hon, be, via, or 7 male spirits, 9 female spirits, nam, that, nu, ku. If it refers to 7 male orifices, 9 female orifices, nam, be, kyu, nu, chin, kyu, it coincides. Via is a part of the hon, soul, but there is no han, independent soul. A soul that exists independently without a place to dwell is not possible. Via cannot be independent, just as name, mental part, and form, physical part, always rely on each other. Only the power of meditation can temporarily separate name from form, as in the formless realms of the 4th jhana. However, these formless realms are not without mind, but they are in a latent state. And in the formless realms, form is not absent. It also exists in a latent state. It's truly regrettable that people say the Buddha and Bodhisattvas also have via. And it is also truly distressing that during the Buddha enshrinement ceremony, people even invoke spirits into the statues. 19. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is only for the elderly. Correct understanding. Buddhism does not discriminate by age or gender. Buddhism is a spiritual support for anyone seeking true happiness in life. Whether you are young or in the twilight of your years, Buddhism offers knowledge, lessons, experiences, and simple yet meaningful philosophies of life. Buddhism provides much beneficial scientific, psychological, and ethical knowledge for our lives and work. And it will certainly help more the sooner you explore it. Don't wait until you have no strength left and everything has passed to discover the right way to live. That would truly be a pity for one's youth. 20. Misunderstanding. Buddhism has 84,000 Dharma gates, Fap-mon. Correct understanding. This is merely a symbolic number, not meant to be deified. Buddhism speaks of 84,000 Dharma aggregates, Fap-uan, not 84,000 Dharma gates, Fap-mon. The word uan, aggregate, besides meaning to cover or to accumulate, also means aisan, group, association, or collection, such as sila-uan, precepts aggregate, samadhi-uan, concentration aggregate, and prajna-uan, wisdom aggregate. Because the word uan was translated as Fap-mon, Dharma gate door, everyone thought there were 84,000 methods of practice, and one could follow any. Who can count all 84,000 of these Dharma doors? 84,000 is just a symbolic number, meaning very many, uncountable, according to ancient Indian religious and spiritual traditions, e.g., 84,000 pores, 84,000 germs in a bowl of water, 84,000 afflictions, 84,000 ways of practice. 21. Misunderstanding. Buddhism is about abandoning suffering and seeking pleasure. Correct understanding. Practicing Buddhism is not about abandoning suffering to seek pleasure. 22. Misunderstanding. Many people think that practice is to gain something. Correct understanding. What is gained is an acquisition. Who acquires? It is the ego that acquires. Buddhism is about non-self, Vongha. Please read the Anattalakkhana Sutta again. Namo Buddhaya. The Dharma can help us gain a correct understanding of what is good and bad, right and wrong in life. People in the world often view life through two lenses, pessimism and optimism. Life is not always smooth and favorable. There will be times when we stumble and make mistakes. Such failures can make us hesitant and give up on life. If we are too pessimistic, we will lose faith in karma. And it's very possible we will miss many good opportunities to renew ourselves. When people live with optimism, they will never be disappointed or sad, but will strive to find solutions, even in the most difficult times. Therefore, let us always live with an optimistic spirit. Embrace the joys of life and seek to transform suffering and pain to find peace and happiness right here, right now. Let us learn to live optimistically. The story of the eagle. If you place an eagle in a cage with no top, that is, the upper part is wide open, even though it still has the ability to fly, this bird will become a complete prisoner. The reason is that an eagle always starts its flight from the ground with a run-up of about 30 feet. Without that runway, out of habit, the bird won't even bother to try to fly and will accept being imprisoned for life in a small cage with no roof. The story of the bat. A normal bat always flies out at night. It is an impressive creature, agile and quick. However, it cannot take off from a flat surface. If it is placed on the ground or a flat surface, All it can do is shuffle around hopelessly and miserably until it finds some elevation, even just a small incline, from which it can launch itself into the air, and immediately it flies up like lightning. The story of the bumblebee. If a bumblebee is released into a large, topless cup, it will also stay there until it dies. Unless we pull it out, it never sees the escape route at the top, but tries to find a way out through the sides or the bottom of the cup. It will look for a path where no path exists until it completely destroys itself. And the story of humans. In many ways, we are also like the eagle, the bat, and the bumblebee. We struggle with all our problems, troubles, and despair without ever realizing that a solution might be very close. We just need to look higher or look forward. Looking back can make you sad. Looking around can make you anxious. Look up, look forward, or lift yourself without needing a run-up. That is the optimistic way of life. A wise king reigned over a peaceful and prosperous land. But then, foreign invaders came. The king led an expedition to suppress those who sought to plunder the country. After a victorious return, the king then renounced the world to practice Buddhism and attained enlightenment. It is truly unclear why a king who had once fought foreign invaders, taking the lives of so many, could still practice and attain enlightenment. A monk suffering from a severe illness, with aching legs for many years that no cure could alleviate. But despite the torment of the illness, the monk did not neglect his practice or the compilation of scriptures. The monk still devoted time every day to complete such works to propagate the Dharma for future generations. And miraculously, after a night with a strange dream, upon waking, the monk was able to discard his crutch and walk lightly, as if he had never been tormented by the leg pain. Then, another monk, during a Dharma discussion, demanded that people kneel and bow to him before he would impart any words of wisdom. But the words he then spoke were similar to what people had already told him. So the monk showed arrogance, putting on airs, and afterward he could not avoid being tormented by illness, vomiting up everything he ate for over a decade. Such are the stories within monastic life. Now, to stories outside the monastic realm. A talented general was on his way back to camp when he encountered an old couple huddled in the bitter cold. The general inquired about them, and then offered the couple a ride to their destination. This change in their journey miraculously helped the general avoid an assassination attempt that the enemy had planned in advance. Then there was a dog meat vendor who slaughtered nearly a dozen unfortunate dogs every day to sell their meat. But gradually, his entire family fell into a tragic state. Illness struck. Children became dissolute and destructive. His assets gradually dissipated. The man had to close his dog meat shop and switch to another profession. In stories like these, the law of cause and effect, karma, is revealed. Sometimes it is truly difficult to explain the root causes clearly, difficult to fully comprehend, but the law of cause and effect remains eternally true, never overlooking anyone. The law of cause and effect in this life sometimes manifests very clearly. Doing good deeds will reap good results. Doing unwholesome deeds, such as killing people, for instance, will lead to bitter retribution. Yet, there are also times when we cannot fully understand or explain the true origins of some events that happen in daily life. Consider the story of a certain twang. He was a very talented man, capable of skillfully and wisely governing his people, making the lives of his subjects increasingly prosperous, content, and happy. His country, too, grew stronger. One might have thought everything would continue peacefully and serenely. But then, what was bound to happen did. Foreign invaders launched an attack, determined to seize what the people of this peaceful nation had built. At that time, the king performed an action that could be called rare in feudal times: a democratic action. The king summoned his ministers, consulted his generals, officials, and village elders about whether to dispatch troops to fight back against the foreign invaders. This was because the enemy's forces were immense, many times greater than the domestic army's capabilities. This enemy had fought and won on battlefields across Asia and Europe, emerging victorious in every battle. The king sought their opinions and received a decisive fight response from all strata of the people. Thus, the entire nation at that time united their hearts and efforts to fight the invading enemy. The casualties were innumerable, but miraculously, justice stood with the small people, whose power was insignificant compared to the enemy. Yet, in the end, they achieved a proud and glorious victory. Not just once, but also a second time when the enemy returned to harass them. So, after many years of resistance against foreign invaders, the country once again became peaceful and prosperous under the skillful leadership of the wise king. And afterward, seeing that everything was settled and in order, the king abdicated the throne to his son and went to the mountains to practice Buddhism. A king at the height of glory, yet willing to give up everything and resolutely renounce the world to practice. How admirable, how fortunate. And then, there was one more true practitioner in this world who attained enlightenment, understood the true nature of life, and spread useful truths everywhere to help people escape the suffering of cyclic existence, samsara. That is the situation. A story that makes us ponder many things about the law of cause and effect. How could a king who had killed countless foreign enemies still attain enlightenment and leave relics in this world after renouncing the world and practicing? It is truly not easy to fully understand the root cause of such an event. However, some people believe that because the king acted according to the will of the entire populace, and he did not truly wish to take human lives, his karmic burden might have been somewhat lessened. And through his efforts in practice, the king was able to attain enlightenment. That is the story of a wise king who had defeated foreign invaders and killed many enemies, yet could still practice and attain enlightenment. We probably need to reflect more deeply on the mysterious and profound nature of the law of cause and effect. Now let us continue to examine a few more stories about karma. Also, within the pure monastic life of monks, there is a story about a monk who is very knowledgeable and proficient in the Dharma. Despite suffering from chronic leg pain for many years, which no treatment could cure, the monk did not neglect his diligent practice or the compilation of scriptures, so that useful truths could be passed down to future generations, helping people escape suffering. For example, the truth of non-self, Von Nga, a truth that states the body and mind we possess are not truly us as we think. There is no such thing as I or mine as we constantly conceive. For body and mind are merely illusory, temporary aggregates of conditions. They arise from the coming together of many causal factors, and when these conditions disperse, they dissolve. They're constantly changing impermanently in the direction of birth, aging, sickness, and death, always fluctuating with countless emotions of joy and sorrow, love and anger following one another. Thus, one cannot say, "I am happy," or "I am sad," for joy is followed by sorrow, and sorrow by joy. Never is there true, endless joy or endless sorrow. Only if it were endless could one truly say, "I am happy," or "I am sad." Therefore, the self is clearly not truly existent. If the self is not real, how can what is called mine be real? All are merely temporary illusions, and as soon as one realizes this, the true reality will appear. This true reality is full of peace and eternal happiness, a state that all of us surely wish to live in. Such truths that monk quietly compiled day after day, even amidst his illness and pain. And then, what was bound to happen, did happen. One night, the monk had strange dreams, and miraculously, upon waking, the leg pain that had tormented him for so long had vanished. The monk could now calmly discard his crutch and walk lightly and gracefully, as if he had never been bothered by illness. It is truly said that sowing good seeds will reap good fruits. That is the story. So, sowing unwholesome seeds will reap unwholesome fruits, which is also self-evident. And the next story aims to illustrate this. There was a monk who, during a Dharma question and answer session, demanded that people kneel and bow to him before he would speak the profound truths. But then the words the monk uttered were similar to what people had already said, so the monk showed off, putting on airs. The monk's ego was still enormous, and then what was bound to happen did happen. The monk was afflicted with illness and tormented. Every day, everything he ate, he would vomit out. The illness raged on for more than a decade. It is truly the case that we should not behave or act like this monk at all. Such are the stories in monastic life. Karma is always manifested to us in a very proper way. What you sow is what you reap. Now let us explore stories of karma in everyday secular life. For karma is always present somewhere around us, in the very ordinary stories that unfold in our daily lives. And among such stories, there is one that we cannot fail to tell. A true story that occurred during the World War I era. At that time, the supreme commander of the Allied forces was on his way back to camp. The convoy of vehicles steadily rolled along familiar roads. Everyone thought everything would proceed smoothly. But then the commander suddenly saw an old couple huddled in the freezing cold. The commander ordered the cars to stop, got out to inquire, and learned that the old couple desperately wanted to return home, which was far away from this place. They were waiting for someone kind enough to give them a ride home. Amidst the snow, the freezing cold, and difficult roads, that was the situation. The commander immediately invited the old couple to get into his car. Thus, the route changed. Instead of returning to camp as initially planned, the entire convoy would now escort the unfortunate old couple back to their warm home. And miraculously, because of this kindness, the commander avoided an assassination attempt by the enemy. For at that time, the enemy had learned of the commander's travel route and had secretly hidden, waiting to ambush and assassinate the supreme commander of the Allied forces, a person who played an extremely crucial role in the success or failure of the fight against the fascists. The commander's good heart played no small part in the war situation at that time. If the commander had simply driven past the old couple, disregarding their plight, then indeed circumstances might have changed greatly. The commander might have been assassinated, and the Allied forces would have lost a brilliant general, playing an indispensable role in humanity's just war against fascism, which was trying to expand its influence across the world, massacring countless innocent and good people. It is true that karma always has its own reasons. We have clearly learned of a real-life case that once happened like that. A person, in an instant, made a truly correct decision, full of human compassion, not abandoning those suffering, but striving to help them. And then, what that person received, or what all good-hearted humanity received, was that the situation of the just war was not turned in an unfavorable direction. And perhaps it was precisely the kindness of the supreme commander of the Allied forces that day that contributed significantly to the victory of all peace-loving and happy people. Karma manifested very clearly in a situation like this, a situation that perhaps others might easily overlook. But with truly kind people, they took action, stood for justice, and as a result, good things came to them. Now let us continue to learn another story about karma in this ordinary life, concerning people who run food businesses. There is a story about a family that ran a dog meat restaurant with sky-high daily sales. It was truly a lucrative business for their family, but it was also truly unfortunate. So many unfortunate dogs had to tragically lose their lives just for the sake of delicious flavors on people's tongues. Even if only for a fleeting moment, people could not resist letting their desires guide them, leading them to commit many unwholesome deeds that they did not foresee. For at that time, when the dog meat business was increasingly prosperous, bad events began to befall this family. Continuous illnesses and pains came one after another to torment the head of the family, the one who had personally slaughtered the unfortunate dogs. As for the children, they became degenerate and corrupt, indulging in decadent pleasures and spending money lavishly without regret. This situation grew progressively worse. And then the climax came when one of the family's children lost their life, electrocuted by the dog roasting oven. Consequently, the head of this family frantically sought out temples to make offerings and pray for peace for their family. But peace, no matter how much they prayed, could not find its way to their family. They even tried to find someone else to take over the job of slaughtering and preparing the dogs, thinking they could transfer all the sin to someone else. But all was in vain. Illnesses and undesirable things continued to befall them. And then, no longer able to endure it, and out of fear, they closed the dog meat restaurant and switched to another profession. Thus, killing will incur appropriate retribution. Among these, frequent illness is one form of retribution that will inevitably come to everyone. Therefore, perhaps we should avoid taking the lives of sentient beings around us. And if, for some reason, we cannot, such as having to spray pesticides to harm crop pests, then the most crucial thing in the precept against killing that we must practice to have a life with less unwholesome karma is that we should not take human life, for a human body is difficult to obtain. If we have the heart to kill someone, severe and tragic retribution will come to us, and there will be no escaping it. So, from the story of a wise king who fought side by side with his people against foreign invaders, who once resolutely took the lives of enemies, yet afterward renounced the world to practice and could still attain enlightenment. Karma, in this case, is truly difficult to comprehend and explain its origins, because we do not see that king suffering painful retribution. Instead, he was able to comprehend the Dharma, live a serene life, full of peace. Meanwhile, some people who run food businesses, who daily kill countless small, unfortunate animals, fall into very tragic circumstances, tormented by illness, or even losing their lives while performing those acts of killing. Then there are other practitioners who, through the merit of compiling scriptures and expounding the Dharma, were gradually able to escape persistent illnesses that had resisted all forms of treatment for so long. But thanks to their perseverance and sincerity in propagating the Dharma, they were completely cured of their ailments. Or, like the practitioner, who clearly received appropriate retribution for being arrogant, conceited, and demanding others kneel to him before he would speak words of wisdom. But then the words he uttered were still similar to what others had already said. So he had to suffer the retribution of eating and then vomiting, which lasted for over a decade. Or, like the retribution that clearly manifested as plain as day when a supreme commander did not hesitate to perform an act of kindness, helping others who were stranded on the road. And afterward, this commander was able to escape an assassination attempt by the enemy. And the World War situation was thus not turned in an unfavorable direction. Such are the stories of karma. In some stories, karma is clearly manifested. What cause is sown will reap its appropriate fruit, and there is no escape. But in other stories, the law of cause and effect is truly difficult to fully explain. But no matter what, the most essential thing is that we should still believe in the law of cause and effect. We should still do good deeds so that good results will come to us. And to do this, perhaps we should turn inward and observe the thoughts and feelings swirling in our minds. We simply look directly at them without giving rise to any other thoughts. We will see them gradually disappear. Immediately thereafter, a state of purity, spaciousness, and clarity will appear. From this state of mind, we will be able to initiate right thoughts, words, and actions that benefit not only ourselves, but all sentient beings around us. Namo Buddhaya. One who is unwilling to suffer loss cannot enjoy great blessings. In present society, surely many people suspect that this world is temporary and illusory. Others' every thought and intention are to deceive us. If we use a sincere heart to treat them, isn't that too much of a loss? Yes, it is too much of a loss. But suffering a loss is a small matter. The benefits you will enjoy later are the great matter. What benefits will you gain later? Rebirth in the Buddha's Pure Land, close to Amitabha Buddha. This benefit for you is immense. A small loss is nothing in comparison. Why bother calculating? One who is unwilling to suffer loss cannot enjoy great blessings. The ancients said, "Loss is blessing." If blessings come and you do not receive them, that is not a wise person. Great blessings are coming and you refuse them. That is truly foolish. Now you seek, but cannot obtain. Naturally, for no reason you must endure others' false accusations. But that is the greatest blessing. If we are at fault, and others criticize us, slander us, humiliate us, there is a reason. We are truly at fault. But if we are not at fault, then the merit is even greater. If we have no fault, why do we encounter this humiliation? If not in this life, then in a past life, or many lives ago. The Dharma teaches us that human beings do not have just one life. In countless past lives, and in the future, there will also be countless lives. If you have not escaped the cycle of samsara in the 6 realms, you have circulated in the 6 realms for countless eons. That is a very long time. If we do not create karma in this life, then we did in a previous life, or even earlier. Based on this, who in today's society does not create karma? If we observe carefully, we can easily see that many accidents occur, and there are more severe illnesses now than decades ago. What is the cause? These all arise from the accumulation of all unwholesome karma of sentient beings. People's hearts are becoming increasingly malicious, rejecting all good things and favoring all bad things. Upon hearing about the 10 wholesome actions, they immediately shake their heads, saying it's too difficult to do. But when it comes to killing, stealing, or sexual misconduct, they immediately nod in approval. Tell me, what way is there to save this situation? Every human being is born with an abundance of greed, hatred, delusion, conceit, envy, oppression, and deceit. In every thought, there is a desire to control everyone, everything, and all objects. In all circumstances, one wishes to harm others for one's own benefit. Just give them a little benefit, and they immediately follow, forgetting all morality and righteousness. These are all erroneous concepts. Why erroneous? Because one always thinks that harming others will benefit oneself, but one does not know that harming others only harms oneself. It does not benefit. In reality, the immediate benefit we perceive is infinitesimally small compared to the suffering of being reborn in hell, as a hungry ghost or an animal after death. We read in the Ksitigarbha Sutra and learn that the suffering in the 3 lower realms is boundless. So, the small immediate benefit is not enough to compensate for the loss of being reborn in the 3 lower realms. Therefore, harming others does not benefit oneself. When one understands this true principle, then in daily life, even if one must endure a little suffering, a little loss, for the benefit of others, what is that worth? Ancient sages said, "One who suffers loss is one with future blessings. In the future, they will certainly enjoy celestial and human blessings, and even more excellent ones." When we use this suffering and loss as motivation to assist us in reciting the Buddha's name and aspiring to be reborn in the Western Pure Land of Sukhavati, to become a Buddha and ancestor, this is truly the greatest and most genuine benefit. Some people also say, "They bully me, they snatch my benefits, and I still have to yield to them. Am I too weak and cowardly?" In the biographies of Shakyamuni Buddha and his great disciples, we see that Shakyamuni Buddha himself was constantly troubled by Devadatta, who sought to harm him. He even tried to take the Buddha's life twice. In the end, Devadatta himself was reborn in the Avicii hell for 2 great asamkhyeya kalpas before being released. Maudgalyayana, revered as the foremost in psychic powers among the Buddha's great disciples, willingly allowed non-Buddhists to beat him to death. Afterward, his body was dismembered into many pieces and buried in a latrine pit. The Buddha and Maudgalyayana showed no trace of resentment towards these events. They both willingly endured. Nearly 3,000 years have passed since then, and generation after generation of disciples have taken the examples of the Buddha and Maudgalyayana as guiding lights on their path of cultivating patience and endurance. So, were the Buddha and Maudgalyayana too weak and cowardly? We must understand that only those who are deluded and confused seek to contend, to surpass others. When faced with a slight grievance, they cannot bear it. When a little injustice befalls them, they immediately harbor resentment in their hearts, constantly seeking opportunities for revenge. In the end, they attract undesirable retribution. We all know that anger inevitably leads to rebirth in hell, and greed leads to rebirth as a hungry ghost. Therefore, truly awakened people will never want to contend, to seize, or to surpass others. And if there is no contention, no seizing, no surpassing, there will be no afflictions. Life will then become free and peaceful. In ancient times, one caddy was calculated as 16 taels, and half a caddy as 8 taels. Hence the saying, one person 8 taels, another half a caddy, meaning both sides are evenly matched, neither inferior to the other. In the era when people still calculated one caddy as 16 taels, there were 2 rice merchants on South Street in a certain district. One merchant's shop was called Vin Xiong, and the other was called Fengdu. The owner of Fengdu rice shop, seeing the chaotic times of war and difficult business, came up with an idea to earn more money. One day, not wanting a crowd to gather and stare, he invited a master of weights to his home and said to the master, "Please adjust the scale so that one caddy is 15.5 taels. I will pay you an extra string of coins." This master of weights, upon seeing the string of coins, forgot all professional ethics and happily agreed immediately. After the shop owner finished speaking, he left the master alone in the yard to adjust the scale, while he leisurely went back to his shop to continue trading. This rice shop owner had 4 sons. All the sons helped him oversee the shop. 2 months prior, the youngest son had married the daughter of a private school teacher. The new daughter-in-law was embroidering in her room when she accidentally overheard what her father-in-law said to the master of weights. After her father-in-law left, the daughter-in-law pondered for a moment, then quickly left the room and said to the master of weights, "My father-in-law is old, perhaps a bit confused and senile. He must have misspoken just now. Please adjust one caddy to 16.5 taels, and I will give you 2 more strings of coins. But please don't let my father-in-law know." Because he received 2 more strings of coins, the master of weights agreed with the daughter-in-law. The scale, with the calibration of one caddy being 16.5 taels, was quickly completed, and the master of weights indeed did not tell the shop owner about this change. Since the rice shop owner had asked the master to adjust scales many times, he trusted his craftsmanship. The owner immediately took the new scale to the shop and used it that very day. Before long, the business of Fengdu rice shop flourished significantly. Even regular customers of Vin Xiong rice shop flocked to Fengdu. One after another, people switched to buying rice at Fengdu. After some more time, people from East Street, people from West Street, almost everyone chose the distant over the nearby, coming from all directions to buy rice at Fengdu. At this point, it goes without saying that the Vinxuang shop directly opposite was utterly deserted. To put it humorously, you could string a net in front of its door and catch birds. By the end of the year, Fengdu Rice Shop was thriving. Vinxuang Rice Shop could no longer sustain itself and had to sell its business to the owner of Fengdu. On New Year's Eve that year, as the whole family gathered around to eat dumplings, the shop owner, in high spirits, challenged everyone to guess the secret of his prosperity. Everyone discussed excitedly. Some said it was divine blessings. Some attributed it to the owner's good management. Some thought it was good geomancy. Others believed it was the hard work of the entire family. He laughed heartily and said, "You're all wrong. What did we rely on to get rich? We relied on the scale. Our scale was set at 1 catty being 15.5 taels. For every catty of rice sold, half a tael was missing. Selling hundreds to thousands of catties a day, we earned hundreds to thousands of extra coins, accumulating day by day, month by month. That's how we got rich." Then he recounted the story from the beginning of the year, how he had paid an extra string of coins to adjust the scale for the whole family to hear. His children and grandchildren were so surprised they forgot to eat their dumplings. After a moment of shock, the whole family said he was truly brilliant, secretly earning so much money without a trace. And even those within the family had not detected it. The shop owner, pleased with himself, chuckled and stroked his beard repeatedly. At this moment, the fourth daughter-in-law slowly stood up and respectfully said to her father-in-law, "There's something else I want to tell you, Father. I hope you will forgive me." After her father-in-law nodded, the daughter-in-law slowly recounted to the family the story from the beginning of the year, how she had added 2 more strings of coins to change 1 catty to 16.5 taels. She said, "Father, you are right. We earn money from the scale. Our scale gives half a tael more. Customers know that our business is honest and generous, and they all want to buy our rice, so of course our business will prosper. Although the profit per catty of rice is a little less, the overall profit will be greater when we sell more. We prospered through honesty." Everyone was even more astonished and gaped. The room suddenly fell silent. Everyone looked at each other. By now, the shop owner did not believe this was true, so he took out the scale he used daily to sell rice and tested it. Indeed, 1 catty was 16.5 taels. He was dumbfounded, said not a word, and slowly walked into his bedroom. The next morning, right after the family finished their New Year's breakfast, the shop owner gathered the entire family, then slowly unhooked the shop keys from his belt and said, "I am old, senile, and useless now. I thought about this all night. Today, I've decided to hand over the shop keys to my 4th daughter-in-law to manage. From now on, everyone should listen to her. Suffering a loss is not a bad thing. Suffering a loss is a blessing. Good begets good is real. Each person is a scale. The difference between those 2 half taels. In everyone's heart, it is as clear as a mirror. In any business we conduct, we must pay attention to honesty and build trust. Initially, it may seem like a loss, but it will keep customers loyal in the long run, and profits will come from that. Namo Buddhaya. Namo